What's happening? What's happening? Finally made it here.
And no picture.
Can
There's no picture of you.
Oh, you can't see me.
Yeah, you're right now.
Oh, what's happening? The joys of technology, Nicky. Never my strong point, but sure, here we are.
I think because this is a big one. I mean, it's the biggest one I've ever done, and there's so much to cover, and it's huge, and I don't see it covered anywhere else. I haven't ever seen it
Yeah.
uh, covered anywhere else.
Well, I'm really looking forward to talking to you because I mean, I said this to you privately. Your posts are on fire lately, and they're really hitting the nail on the head for so many people with what we're living in real time. And these are exceptional times. I don't know if you've ever seen in your lifetime the madness, the chaos that's
Mm.
going down at the moment. And it's very much an individual thing, it's very much a collective thing. As they say, uh, what's in one is in the whole, and here we are. So I was really excited to get to have the opportunity to do this, and share with everybody where you stand on things, how you feel about things, what's your perspective on the world right now. Loving fearlessly is what you wrote in the post that you shared, and I think that's what's being called for at the moment. And at the same time, it's so difficult to for so many to keep your head above water as we're
Mm.
navigating these times. How
Yeah,
do we love fearlessly in these times,
yeah,
Nicky Hamid?
yeah. I was going to ask you a question to start with,
Mm,
um, like your perspective on anger that you see around you and so on. What is what's your experience perspective? Because I think it's highly relevant to
yeah.
what I want to talk about.
For me personally, this is just me and my own personal world. What I have found has been happening is I am, as I'm remembering the truth of who I am, honoring myself moment by moment, bits and pieces from my past are coming up where I know now I have given myself away. I have, put other people first. I have allowed situations that I firmly believed in, like I would have believed it with all of my being, that were true. I'm realizing that they're not. Things that I invested my time, energy, and presence in, I'm looking at them going, what was I doing? What was I thinking? Um, and these are tiny things, but they're old. They're calling me to fine tune my own frequency, try and get me to bring myself back into the present moment as much as I can without, and excuse my language in advance, being so pissed off at myself for what I have lived through already, not knowing then what I know now. And then I find myself torn in a space of a very clear choice point to be here now or to be there now, or to be there rather. Because for me, like I said, personally, I'm realizing that all there is now, and in this now moment, I have a choice, and I have another choice, and I have another choice. So when the anger or rage, unaddressed rage, starts to brew, I'm so almost consumed by not letting it up and out, because it's not, the healthy thing to do. But it is, and I didn't know that I could. I didn't know I could speak my truth. I didn't know I could feel what my heart wanted. I didn't know I could communicate what my desires were. I didn't know any of this until very recently. And in that space, as I said, I feel like being torn in two different directions. and the invitation for me, this is just me, is to remember to be here now, to be love, to beam love, and do nothing else. Don't touch anything else. Concentrate on myself, but it's not always easy. And as I said, that's when the rage comes up, or the anger and the confusion or conflict inside as to how do I communicate this without losing myself.
Mm.
Um, so I don't know if that helps, but that's me.
Oh, sweetheart, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. I mean, it's perfect. Exactly. Uh, it it's why I asked you, because I know you only speak straight,
Mm,
and that is straight, and it speaks to so many in different forms, because each of us is going through this in our own way, but the same essence is there. Essence, and I'd like to take a higher view, but also a realistic view. And what you're saying is very true to now for everybody. It's
mhm.
just that some people realize it more. You know, the more awake you are, everyone's experiencing it in their own form, because the pressure of the ages is upon us. You
Yeah,
know, the old karma is rising to leave, and we're going into a totally new consciousness, and so we must. And I'm going to speak at a number of levels, and you interrupt me anytime, and ask questions, because you and I are just so totally in sync when
mm,
we chat. Uh, uh, yeah, but I'm going to put it this way, that each of us, and there are different ways to describe what I'm about to say, and whatever I say isn't it. It's so much more, but it's about what I say. Does it resonate? Does it fit? Does it give us a wider view of who we are and why we're here? Why we're here, because we've all been healing ourselves on our own, and that's the way it must be, because we come to a point where we have to face the dweller on the threshold, is the way it's used, and often it's depicted as a black, dark figure waiting, barring the door, which we know we have to open to freedom,
yeah.
and it keeps coming. And wherever that dweller stands and we are hesitant, we're in fear, and we have to move beyond that fear. And to move beyond that fear, to rise is to rise up in all our might and strength, and say, "No more, be gone." So we face that dweller on the threshold. This is the point of change. Uh, and I am saying, and I'm going to maintain, that to do that, you have to come to terms with anger. That's the human expression of it. And you talked about rage. I want to talk about wrath,
Mm,
because it's rage without the emotional blindness, right?
yeah.
But what we are is moving through is we have to move through our fear of our own rage, our wrath, and yet experience the wrath of God within ourselves that says, "No friggin' more. I
Yeah,
choose this. And woe betide anyone who tries to stop me." Now,
yeah.
that is not a challenge in physical form to conflict. It is no more that you cannot move me, because I'm moving. I'm taking my step. Nothing can move me. And one of the pictures has presented there were in the final um, analysis of the goddess Kali. You've seen the goddess Kali. She has that fierce figure who has many arms and the sword and holds the heads
Yeah.
of darker beings. All right. Now, Kali and her consort, her lover, her twin, if you like, Shiva, it came to the stage when Shiva had to fight the battle against the dark that were trying to overcome and enslave and slaughter the innocent ones he was um, a protector of. And so he went into battle, and the battle was a battle of, if you like, righteousness. But they were in battle, a final battle, as it were, and it was bloody, and it was uh, um, uh, the final one. We do this, or we're lost,
Mm.
and so the battle was horrific and huge. But it came to a stage where the dark was winning, and Shiva was not on top. And Kali saw her innocent soul tribe being slaughtered, and her anger rose,
Mm.
and it rose into rage. And she went into battle also. And she went into battle, uh, well, we say like a maniac. And she slaughtered left, right, and centre until they were conquered. But she had that rage. Shiva was trying to stop her because she was going blindly in her rage. And so he threw himself in front of her with his love for her and tried to stop her. And she was about to chop his head off. And just for a moment, she stopped. And that's when she took her wrath, her stand. And it was love that conquered that rage. It was love that conquered the rage. They had won. So the dweller on the threshold is coming to terms with your rage, and that everyone at their own level in this time is having to come to terms with their own rage and anger, or even for some people recognize it because they've been so heavenly bound, angelic. They've ignored this anger. So there's a story. But let's take the other another view. We as humans, beautiful humans, we are, you are, I am, beautiful humans, and humans have been given a bad rap. That's my next book, actually, Beautiful Human. Beautiful human. But we have given a bad rap. We've been taught. I mean, the Christian church says people are born in sin.
Mm.
As children, you have to go to confession. And in the Catholic Church, because they got it down to a T, how to control. And you didn't have anything you could think of, so you made it up. So you lied. So immediately the game set up for you to be uh, untrue. And as children, we were taught things, and looking for approval, we had to manipulate what we knew in order to be accepted and approved.
Yeah.
And so we've all been through that in some way or other, some much worse than others. So we're all healing. This clearing has been the healing of that, the healing of our own attitude to who we are, discovering how beautiful we are. Now, what happens we have a whole scenario which is moving towards the kids. In fact, the kids, and the anger is rising. There's a point in which we move from anger to rage. And the next point is what I'm pointing to is you have to move from rage to wrath. No more. I stand. It's like women, and this is just a very big generalization, but the feminine is learning to own her warrior.
Mm.
And then the true warriors in the old days were strong and mighty, but didn't never went into the battle with rage. They went in for justice, for the truth. They stood for the truth and they went into battle. And they were mighty, they were almost inconquerable because there was no fear of death, because they had that continuity, that understanding. They were standing for the right, for the just, for those who could not defend themselves, for the innocent. So the warrior stands for the innocence of being. And as we rise up to that no more, we're standing for the innocence of humanity, which is our truth. And we have to move from that. But to do that, we have to go through our anger. Now, I mean, you've, think that, for example, you have generally had no trouble getting angry. Right? Whereas
What you talking about, Nicky?
yes, have had difficulty being angry.
I just say something, right? Because
Go on.
yes and no. Yes, there is a fire in me. If I want to detonate a bomb, it'll go off like that. But it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good within me because um, it's so intertwined. You know, from a place of not being aware of if I wasn't aware of myself, and sometimes I'm not, I'm human, and anger comes up, and it comes at me so fast and hard. It's not even anger, Nikki, it's confusion.
Yeah.
It's confusion, it's emotions that are muddled or mixed, and then if that anger comes up and I don't like it, I will almost try to push it right back down just because I don't like who I become if. And I know what you're talking to when you're talking about wrath. There's a huge gap between you know anger and
Yeah. What I was getting at was that because you have experienced your anger, you know it.
mm,
Uh, and so, although you have to deal with it in your own way in specific circumstances, you are familiar with it, so it's not alien to you.
mm,
It's not alien to you. Whereas there are a lot of people who go around, smoothing everything over, with spiritual ideas, and there's anger seething in there,
mm,
but they won't recognize it. It's not positive, therefore it gets pushed down again. And
yeah.
I'm saying that every one of us, but because I get over these last few years more and more, I'm getting things from nurses, for example, who have seen some pretty horrific things physically, but also have had to go along with decisions which go against their better knowing.
Mm,
Now, everybody in their life has had experiences where they have denied their truth uh, for peace, for keeping the peace, for getting approval or whatever. We've all done it. We've all had the flashes. All of us have always known what's right. When
mm,
someone comes into the room, you get this feeling, gives you a shudder. But spiritual people are taught, it's your judgment of
mm,
yourself. And maybe that is, but it's also the truth of the energy that's coming into you. because what I'm going to say is that there is a battle going on now. There's a battle going on earth, the dark and the light. Is the easiest way to describe it. It's going on because it's time for the change in consciousness to come. But it's going on at all kinds of levels. It's going at various levels of frequency or dimensions, and it's going on in spirit form. There's a battle going on, huge battle. And what we're seeing on Earth is um, a reflection of that in this dense 3D form. We're playing it out. And every one of you who listens here has chosen to come. You heard the call. You heard the call. Light is winning, and it will win because it's time. It's evolutionary time for change. But we have to stand. Those who came for the call must make a stand. And to make a stand, we take our warrior. And to become a true warrior, I am saying you have to come to terms with your anger. You have to have experienced it within yourself to the fullest and allowed yourself to watch the experience without attaching stories to it.
Okay, and can I stop you there? Because that's where
Yeah.
I know I fall down, and other people in my circle who I've been speaking to about the relentless feeling of being pummeled by the stories, by our stories, by our history, by the present moment getting hijacked over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to terms with our anger, for me, as I'm listening to you, means coming to terms with, how do I say this?
Can I put it this way? Coming to terms with being trampled on and not accepting that anymore.
Yeah.
No one has the right to trample on your truth, and you are the defender of that truth.
Yeah.
No one.
But
Absolutely.
what if, right? What if, just playing devil's advocate here, but what if somebody is in the middle of a situation, they're feeling all sorts. It's like, somebody has just plugged them into something and they're just wired with all of these feelings, emotions, thoughts, beliefs, experiences coming at them, because that's how it feels like for many people. That's how fast it feels. You're vertical, then all of it, or you're horizontal, you're vertical, you're horizontal, vertical, and it's just so relentless, and people are exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Is there any way that people can discern is there any way that people can discern how to literally pull themselves back into the present moment, where we remember it's all we have, so that they're not
Yeah.
getting completely consumed by those stories? Because
Yeah.
we never have any control about anything that's going on outside of us, but it feels like we get
You
pulled
do.
in so many different directions. Oh yeah, 100%, I agree. You have a choice every time, but when you're in it and this energy is relentlessly hitting us, it's very, very easy to
This
forget.
is this is where building a dynamic is, and I would say that first of all, for most people, who are feeling this anger rise and don't know what to do with it and feel there's something wrong with them, is to go into private. It has to be done privately. It has to be done on your own, and to be in a place when it does rise, when you have the opportunity to go away and to let it all out, to swear and curse and smash things or whatever, and to see how far your anger goes and allow it to go that way without anyone else present, because you draw that in. One, it's coming to terms with that feeling and seeing that you no longer need to be afraid of your own emotion, as it were. To feel it and feel it through, just as I say, when you're sad, cry and cry and allow it to go deep. And then those tears eventually become tears of love.
Mm.
Going into anger, eventually it becomes strength, how strong I am, how it feels empowering to be in my truth
Mm.
and not allow anything or anyone to trample on it anymore. And it's only, okay, that's only one occasion. But first of all, it is like facing the dweller on the threshold. It's the transmutation of the ego, anger, to the divine truth. They're both power. Anger is power.
Mm.
And it's taking our power, and we have to do it privately. It's not going to work in the situation where those situations are brought to us and they're coming to us now because it's like trying to raise that up. But if you try to handle it then and there, well, you do have to try and handle it in some way, but it doesn't feel complete.
Mm.
But it feels complete once you can see these things going, the confusion coming in. Once you can stand there and feel it and say, you like, for example, to say, this is a movie,
Mm.
is a movie. Because if in the point of fear, because the anger and the fear against how you're going to react and go, boom, if you choose that it's a movie, in the point of fear, the game is up.
Yeah.
In that moment, the game is up. Then you can choose whether you and stand your ground. You stand your ground and hold peace. You stand your ground and walk away. You have a choice
Mm.
of any of those, but you're doing it because above all, to thine own self be true. And I'm not going that way. I'm not buying into. I don't give my consent. Not on my watch. But that comes from a knowing in being. You understand what I mean? And
Yeah.
we have to experience that. So we have to deal with that anger. Like so many have worked in institutions, in offices, in schools, in factories, and um, hospitals, nursing homes, whatever. So many have done that and had to deny our truth. This
Mm.
is not This is not right. Because in any of these organizations, the way it's been constructed, they dehumanize, or what I call, a Jung calls de-individuation. We
Mm.
become de-individuated because we take on the institutional manner. And in that dehumanization, we lose power. And in that loss of power, we have lost our own voice, as it were. We lose our own voice, and we fall into doubt all the time because we've got those messages. And it's dark. The shadows come in from the organization, from others, and go into your field, and they niggle at your wounds. So
Mm.
we experience self doubt because there's a spiritual level of all this as well. And we've got this. But why anger? Because anger, uh, anger is the dweller on the threshold. Anger is fear of our own power because we are mighty, and it's not a power over anything. It's a power in life. And we came here to a call to bring the light. And if we keep getting caught up in the rhetoric and the narrative and the unjustness of it all, we're not in our truth, which is I stand for no more. I defend the innocent. And first of all, I defend the innocence in me
Mm.
because we were beautiful humans. When humans first came to Earth, it was pristine. It was, if you like, the Garden of Eden. It was pristine and beautiful, and we were co-creating, and there was no veil between the other frequencies and the physical frequency, because we came straight from God, and we knew we're spiritual. We were soul beings who knew, and it was very close, so that the human child was growing in innocence and in a world that supported that innocence, and we all experienced it. But gradually, we had we say the fall, but gradually we forgot. We got the people of Mu became the people of Lemuria, and they lived in a beautiful environment that was pristine and innocent and cooperative. The sort of world we're hoping to move towards as transition from this one that we've experienced. But another people came from another part of Earth who were in were connected to ETs and so on, but not in negative form, but who were idealistic and built a world that was based on crystals and spiritual knowledge and was growing and becoming more magnificent. And they spoke the words of their knowing to those in Mu. Now, the people in Mu didn't know lies or deception, or didn't were quite amenable, so they accepted their truth as truth to some extent and began to adopt it. And gradually they fell because they replaced some of their truth with the truth of the Atlanteans. And we saw what happened to Lemuria. And then we had Atlantis, who learned the hard way that you could become so spiritually advanced with a, a, um, a frequency technology of crystals that you became arrogant, and that was their downfall. Now we have the third one. We have the third, and this is the final. This is the final point where we take that knowledge and power and strength of the truth of the Atlantean and merge it with the innocence and beauty and joy of the Mu, if you like, the original human nature, because that's who we are.
Yeah.
And now we're having the young threatened, and soon it will become worldwide knowledge of what's happened to the children for ages with the dark. And it will be too much severe for some people. But we sense that. We sense the injustice. We sense, and we are become incensed by the um, misuse of the innocent. And that is what's rising. That's what's rising now. And I see it in the nurses, particularly, are more frequent who report to me, but it's similar in all kinds of walks of life. They have been dehumanized and they're angry, and they've retired. Some of these nurses have retired for some time, and they're angry at what the institution has done. But they somehow feel with their spiritual journey, they shouldn't be angry.
Mhm.
And I'm saying, yes, yes, you should. But do something with that anger. Take it to the extreme in your own privacy. Feel it and feel the power that's behind it, because we've all had our truth trampled upon, and we've allowed it. You could say, as innocent children,
Mhm.
we got we got forced into it. But it doesn't matter how it happened. Now's the time to rise up. And so the new world is built with, I said that females tend to be in that process of owning their warrior. Men tend to be in that process of owning their angel, their innocence. We're all moving towards that innocence, but towards that, and that's why they tend to be quiet and submissive, or apparently submissive often, as they go into this journey into self, because they've got to learn to cry. They've got to learn to feel what's in there. They've got to learn the anger. They know the anger probably more. I'm generalizing at the moment,
Yeah.
but they're coming together. It's coming together, and the point of change is the taking of that wrath, no more, of the rising up of Kali, the rising up of a lion to protect her cubs. We came here to honor the innocent, the innocence in ourselves and the innocence in all human beings. Because within a few months, there's going to be thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people who will need our help and how to heal. They won't be able to cope with everything. And it's not about telling them what has happened to them. It's about them, it's about healing the innocent, because the ones who are not awake are the innocent.
Mm.
And this is how we will learn. But we have to take our power. And wherever we fall into anger, we've lost it. We know we've lost it
Yeah.
when we go into anger. And anger against what's been done and the injustices and so on is what do you call it? Is against our purpose. It's against our purpose. But wrath needn't ever be seen as wrath. It will be seen as immovable. It will be seen as light for those who want to see. And no matter how dark the shadow or the devil is, or whatever you like to call it, the law is in higher light and higher love, be gone. It has no power. This reality that we're experiencing has no power when we stand in truth, because we're on a different timeline. I mean, I remember you saying last time about going in there without the mask into the shops.
Still
And
am.
they didn't even see you, did they? They
No.
didn't see you, because we're on a different timeline. I'm saying if you go through your anger and take your stance as a warrior in truth, you'll stop inviting all these encounters.
Yeah.
They just won't be there. You'll walk through with immunity, total immunity.
Can I take you backwards for a second here?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
I mean, I'm like a sponge listening to this, but I hope I remember everything I wanted to ask you. What I heard you say is, at the moment, we are all in one way or another looking at pretty much the violation of our innocence, no matter what age we are, the violation of our innocence. As the mother, I feel very protective of my children.
Yeah.
And so that's one facet of this. As the woman committed to her growth and expansion, I feel now very protective of myself, as in what I have, like as I said, what I have lived. I see the violation of my innocence in many shapes and forms, handed back to me, or the dismantling of it via the stories of what I have lived through. And what I'm seeing at the moment is how each and every interaction I have with another is an invitation for me to see myself in the present moment, or where I have lost myself to fear, and how the fear has compounded and compounded and compounded to the point where I personally can see where my voice was suppressed or my choices were taken away, or um, you know, any emotion that I felt was dismissed or so on, to the point where you're talking about the voice of the feminine rising, and in the man it could be the forgotten idea that the men can cry, and that
mm,
they too have almost been robbed or violated of the same thing, the same nurturing, the same support, the same care that we all were. It was our birthright, our happiness, our joy. And so this balance is trying to be achieved between the masculine and the feminine. And again, I'm not going down that route, but I'm seeing both, a call for both to rise up in their sovereignty, into their presence, into being in a position where they can discern what's an illusion and what's not, what's fear and what is love. And what I heard you say was, love knows. Love has always known. Our bodies innately have had access to this wisdom of the ages. And in this call for our honoring of our own divinity, simultaneously the invitation of our capacity to access that divine wrath where we say no, no
mm,
more. So the feminine voice gets to speak her truth and honor
mm,
her wounds, and the masculine voice gets to drop his armor and cry for what he has lost.
mm,
And
mm.
all at the same time, take, access everything that we have literally remembered, and bring that forward with us, in remembering that what I heard you say is love. Somebody just wrote it there: love knows, love wins, love is the great miracle cure, love is the remedy to everything. And I'm not talking in a big woo woo way, because you know a lot of I said this morning in the conversation. We went from dodging our anger, putting it in a nice bottle, and putting it up on the shelf there, and going down the spiritual route. So we become all love and light, and all of a sudden we forget that it's actually okay to be pissed off. It's okay to feel that rage. It's okay to feel that anger. And in fact, it's actually healthy. It always has been. And so when you remember what we did generationally, we traded our authenticity, our natural state of being, for acceptance, for approval, for conditional love. That when we remember in this now moment, that we can access all of that love for ourselves. And if I do it, and if you do it, and the next person does it, and the next person does it, the simple act of honoring ourselves in this now moment, based on our knowing of what we know to be in alignment with ourselves, detach from the story, be here now, and take that forward with us. It sounds nice as I'm describing it. It's not always easy, because the story is so compounded. I'm
Because
watching it.
because we had to face that dweller on the threshold within ourselves to become totally unafraid of anger.
Mm,
Because behind the anger is truth, and behind the truth is freedom, and behind freedom is love, and behind love is service to everyone.
mm,
Service to everyone. Because whatever we face, we can't preconceive because it's given divinely to us in love. And we know that if we stand and we feel strong and we feel all powerful, then whatever we do in that moment will be attractive to those who are seeking.
Mm.
It will be attractive even if they don't know. No matter what we say, no matter what we do, it'll be in our being. And the dark has to recede. It cannot. It's afraid of it. And if we are resolute and in our truth as warrior being with angelic, with the angelic, the love behind it, it's natural. Once the door is open to truth of who I am and
Yeah.
the magnificence, the magnificence of who I am and what I am a part of, nothing, nothing of the dark could ever come near it. Only those who are searching for their heart. And this is what each of us will do and are doing. But yeah, and it is coming to terms with we have to experience the fact that our anger can go a long way and we can be there to see it through. No one else present because it can be misconstrued or taken upon. It's a private thing. It's a
Yeah.
private with our soul family, of course, because we can call them in, the beings of light and love, to be by our side and to feed the love behind as we go through it. But we face that dweller on the threshold because Kali, the mad woman, becomes Kali goddess.
Mm.
It moves from ego to being. And she is the protector, the lioness who protects her cubs and any other animal for that matter.
Yeah.
The bird that risks its life by trying to distract the enemy away from the nest. Um, uh, Life, death has no meaning at that point because we know we're forever anyway. You've stepped through the door, and so you're fearless. And
Yeah.
love is behind that.
Yeah.
So we love fearlessly.
Mm. Can I show you?
It's
I just want to show a comment here from Paula. And sure, most people are afraid to let go completely with anger because of its power and what they'll look like, or who they will affect, and what others will see them as. It needs to be realized. So I love doing it in private. I think that's a big, that's a very common um, situation for people when we're all so attached to the stories.
Yeah. Well, some my past is a funny instance, but first of all, I used to find when I was a boy, I liked physical sports. It was good for me because I was very clumsy. I still am, always dropping things. But um, when I was playing sports like rugby, for example, or soccer or whatever, at high school especially, but also at primary school, there'd be somebody who was a bully and he had the way with everyone, yeah, whatever he said went, and he pushed people, physically pushed people around, these bullies. But I would take that. But when I saw that him take it was usually a he, take someone on who was weak, because they like to pick on the weak, I used to see red. Well, that's anger. I saw red, and I would go in, boots and all, people bigger than me. Uh, I don't know, it was something I was born with, as it were, to defend the innocent and the weak. And that happened right the way through. And I learned to deal with that. I got into a fight where I remember the very last one that happened. I was furious at this big guy in the fifth form, and I was in the third form or fourth form, bullying, and I'd had enough, and I went in, and I physically overpowered him because I was in the rage, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you power. And I had him on the ground, just like Carly. Now I see that, Carly had Shiva, her consort, on the ground, and I could have biffed him, all the kids walk around, and I got up and I walked away. And as I walked away, he kicked me in the back, and I kept walking away. He'd lost.
Yeah.
He lost in the eyes of everybody else, and even more when he kicked me in the back and I continued to walk away. That's what it's so like facing my anger. I wasn't generally didn't get angry, and I don't get angry. I'm get grumpy, but I don't get angry.
Mm.
But the other time was when I was under great pressure. My kundalini was up, and I was out of my body, and I was dealing with a whole lot of things. I thought, well, I'm not angry, and I should be angry at what's happening to me. I should stand up. So I thought, I'm going to be angry.
Mm.
It didn't work because somebody confronted me, and I was starting to be angry. I had a crystal glass in my hand, and I thought, I'm going to biff it at the wall. But then instead of doing that, we're on the floor of a two-story building, and I thought I biffed it out. So I went there and dropped it.
Mm.
That wasn't anger. And so I really couldn't get angry, but I knew my truth, and I wasn't
Yeah.
going to budge. But I had got into an argument. I knew it was a waste of time,
Yeah.
so I stepped back. Funny thing is, the crystal glass, fell down the 2 stories, and guess what? It didn't break. It didn't break, so I didn't even get the satisfaction of that. Um, but it, it is being able to go as far as you can go in what you feel,
Mm.
but not put it. You need to do this privately. You have to know it for yourself. You have to feel it for yourself. You have to face the dweller on the threshold and say, "Poof, poof,"
Can I ask
because
a quick question, Nikki, about when you're facing what you've just said?
mm,
You're facing like you call it the dweller and the threshold. What about the grief that comes for many people with this?
well, I don't see. If you're dealing with anger, there's not a grief.
So
If
you've
there,
got somebody. You say you've got a situation where you've literally faced yourself. You're looking back. You're realizing everything that you have allowed. You're
mm,
furious. You're furious with the people outside of you. You're furious with yourself. You're furious with life. I guess what I'm talking about is the
oh right.
aftermath of that because it's like when you've peaked and then it's like the come down and what how do we land ourselves when we have allowed that rage to bubble up or we've allowed that anger to be seen and felt.
Well, when you feel that sadness, you can easily turn it into regret and get into another loop, right?
Yeah.
So you feel the sadness. And what happens when you feel the sadness and allow it? You have tears. And where you have tears, you have love.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not get into story, don't regret anything. It was what it was. Look, every one of us have had the experience if we've been here more than this incarnation. Every one of us have been a male going into battle with swords and all sorts and slaughtering the enemy left, right, and centre, and then going into the villages and raping, pillaging, and murdering kids. Every one of us has done that. Now, how could you do that? Because before the battle, you're in rage, you're in hate. That's what you've been worked up. Otherwise, you wouldn't last 5 minutes on the battlefield. We've had to go onto rage, and we've done some, if you like, horrendous things. So wouldn't you be afraid of letting go of that anger? The power that and the misuse and abuse. I mean, we did it innocently, in a sense, because we were conditioned, programmed in that incarnation. to look at the enemy as inhuman, as not human. And so that's what comes with that anger too. Those are the wounds. And we need to take our anger to that point, not need to, but to take our anger to the point it wants to go, and not regret anything we've done. To forgive, maybe, but to understand it and see it was what it was. And now I know. And now I know I'm thank you, I know. Now I know in my heart. And I know what's behind my choice. My choice is no more, not on my watch. My choice is this is the open door, this is the way I go, and come with me if you will, but don't stand against me.
No. Yeah.
And this is the point we're at. This is the point we're coming to. This is why, if you like, you could say the white hats, but it's not the white hats. It's a plan, a plan. It's taking us on and on through this silly nonsense that's going on. It's taking us on and on. It's for people to wake up. But it's really for enough people to have just said, all they need to do is say, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of that. That is a turning point. Because there's a lot of us here who know, and there's a lot of us here can help them to come to terms with how they've been treated and how it's no more. No more. We just won't allow it. In our own way, in our own life, in the circumstances that come to us, we hold our ground. And we're holding our ground as, I mean, do you know the Bhagavad Gita?
No. Yes,
It's,
but no.
yeah, it's a song called the Song Celestial. It's one of the Vedic texts, and it's a beautiful text. There are some good translations of it. But basically, it is the story of Arjuna, a Pandu prince, who is prince of all sorts of tribes, and he stands on a hill overlooking another hill with the enemy standing. Now, the enemy has lots of loved ones and people he knows well. As many as there are, he is leading into battle. But it's like a feud that's grown immensely. And he is required to lead his army into battle with people he loves, as well as poor people he loves. And he's in this. We
Sorry.
what?
Yeah, Alexa decided to add her input there.
Okay. So, and he's on this dilemma because he has to fight but doesn't want to. And so Krishna, the Lord, if you like Christ, comes into his chariot. And the whole book is about the discussion between this: do I fight or don't I? And if we remember that the real self is immutable, permanent, unchangeable, infinite, the soul being who we are, then we do our duty to the best of our ability without thought of reward or gain for ourselves, and all will be well with us. And he talks about the passive, because some people do their task is a passive. Other people it is to stand up front. And he also says, which is unusual when you think of the way Indian uh, um, uh, spiritualities depicted, he said of the two, the path of non-action, the path of action, the path of action is to be most admired. It's the hardest part. To stand in the trenches and stand firm and not be swayed of the truth, of that knowledge of the real self, to hold that truth in the marketplace, as it were. So we're all being called, some way or other, to stand, to make us stand. And we don't have to say anything.
No.
Or we do, or we
Yeah.
demonstrate, or we demonstrate, or we're not. It's and being able to be in a crowd and not caught up with it, hold your ground. That's
Yeah.
a difficult thing. That's a difficult thing because of the psychic effluvia that carries people on. We have to know our emotions. We have to know the power of our emotion and know that we always can make that choice. What you were talking about earlier, in the situation with all these things happening, how can we do it? Well, we can't if we haven't faced and acknowledged and owned our real power.
Yeah.
And as we do that, we get better and better at being able to handle, or if you like, experience that walking tall and being at peace and saying yes and saying no.
Can I ask, for anybody who is in an environment where they're feeling the pressure of external um, forces, whatever way you want to put it, in a workplace, to conform, to comply, to, I guess, hold that line. What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say first go back within yourself and do this sort of work when you're not there, and then use the little tools you have to keep you to bring you back to center when you're out of center, and don't make a whole plan of how you get out of these things, because in that truth you will deal with it. I
Yeah.
mean, to have this or not, it doesn't really matter. If you believe in the immunity and what you're connected to, it doesn't really matter one way or the other. But if you do believe that that it's um, uh, uh, it, the violation of your freedom to choose is being taken away from you, then remember that you choose to be in your job or not.
Mm.
So it isn't taken away from you. I mean, if you decide, well, I need the money to keep my family going, and I've got to do this, then you do it, but do it in the knowing. So it's not consenting to their rules, you're consenting to the choice you're making for your family or whatever. Because the same action
Yeah.
can be chosen either way. It's when we feel this coming at
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
We haven't stepped back in. So, I mean, I give this answer all the time. Come back first, in for a moment. And this is why we need to build a dynamic. This is why we need to do it when we feel good, not just when we're in the situation, to build it and to know that there's programming going on, and there has, and to know. But when it comes to the point of truth, what's right for me and what's not, I say no. I do not give consent. It's the same in gossip in the office, for example. Some people being very negative, and you let them know in some ways just by your immovability
Mm.
that you don't go there. You're
Mm.
not interested in that. And if they reject you, they reject you. Tough. That's
Yeah.
tough on them. That's tough on them, not on you,
Yeah.
because you know. But if you can't say anything in an environment like that, keep your mouth shut. But don't deny your truth.
Yeah.
Still be present that way, because our presence is powerful. Our words can be powerful, but our presence is powerful.
Yeah.
I've got a new book out, and it's
Sure do.
called Humanity Rising. But the book is not my words, it comes from the collective. So the book has its power and energetic power. It's not me, it's not just me, it's us.
Yeah.
When you stand in an office against all this rubbish that's going on, and you feel at peace, and you know what your choices are, and stay stum, you're still beaming this out.
Your
They'll
energy
come
speaks.
to you. They'll come to you because they feel you're calm
Yeah.
when they're in panic, and thus we heal. Does
Yeah.
this answer your question?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. When you stand in your own truth, when you stand in
Mm,
your own power, when irrespective of, what has happened in the past, you can't change it. But when
yeah.
you be now, when you stand in your own truth, you honor yourself, you're
Mm.
changing the complete trajectory of the future.
Yes,
And
yeah.
you're allowing yourself the actual joy of the present.
Mm. Because the movie is our hologram. Each of
Mhm.
us live in our own hologram. And so if we're changing the energy, we're changing the hologram.
Yeah.
It might not visibly change things out there, but it changes the energy and how it relates to you because you're relating to it differently.
Yeah.
It's a movie. It's a movie. I am a soul being having having an experience through this human Nicky, who's a delightful soul, even if he's clumsy,
Yeah.
even if he's only got less than half his teeth. It does.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Um, I'm powerful, but I see everyone as having power. I see all the light workers having come because they heard the call. Bless their precious hearts. You all heard the call. You've all been through a really, really tough time, but you've come out. And now our work begins. Our work begins of healing those innocent who don't know,
Mm.
who don't know. And we'll just leave. We'll need our love. We'll need the new schools we'll develop. We'll need the new jobs that will become available,
Yeah.
and they'll have their freedom financially as well. And that's what we're going to build. But there's a lot of healing because there's a lot of hurt people. The hurt of the ages needs healing,
Yeah.
and that's what we came for. That's what we came for.
I guess that
And
begins individually with ourselves, doesn't it?
absolutely, now you've done the clearing.
Mm.
Clearing just needs to, it's just to take back the fullness of your power and stand tall.
Yeah. One of the
I
things
mean,
I'm experiencing is when I rumble a story, like when I rumble the bullshit I fed myself for decades,
mm,
like it's like dominoes fall.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I'm talking about healing something that might have come up when I was a child or a teenager or whatever. And it's like dominoes, everything falls. And then when I stand in it and face it, allow that anger, that rage to surface, allow the aftermath of it for me to ground and level myself. It doesn't repeat because it
Mm,
can't, because I faced down the illusion of what it was. I've
yeah,
acknowledged what it has, the part it has played for me. I
yeah,
acknowledge the lessons that I have experienced and the wisdom I can access in any given moment from it. But
because,
when
yeah,
when you said that this is a movie, I'm like at this point, well, if this is a movie and we've got one shot at this, I'm gonna play full out, and I'm not going to allow fear to run me when I remember in that moment the opposite of it, which is love.
mm,
And if I can keep doing that, I don't know.
yeah. Well, yeah, and if you want to know feel your power, you move through the anger. But the love comes. We don't have to. You just like it's looking back on your life when you've got to that point you're talking about of seeing some childhood event and going through it, and then you see it for what it is, and then it's like loving yourself for having realized this.
Mm.
And that experience was beautiful. It was a gift. It was a gift so that you have this knowing now, because everything we've done provides that. So we're no longer judging it. We're no longer seeing it as bad. It's a gift. Thank you, thank you. Now I know.
Yeah.
And there's no having to consciously integrate the inner child with yourself. It's
No.
naturally coming back.
Yeah.
It's naturally coming back because when you're not serious, when you're not standing for truth uh, uh, um, against an apparent opposition, what do? You play.
Mm.
You play. You play.
Yeah. I was going to
Whether
say, right, when that happens, when I collapse, I'm going to use this terminology. When I collapse a timeline and all the
mm,
dominoes fall, I get to step back into the innocence of that child. And it's at that point when I get to remember what I came here to be, innocence. It's at that point, if anybody goes up against me, I will go through them. It's
yeah,
not going
yeah,
to happen. It stops and it ends here. And that's when you get to identify the innocence within you and no one or no thing will come between you and that. And I
mm,
love that. I love that space that I'm in now. That's when my not on my watch kicks
yeah,
in and ignites, because the joy I get to experience by getting to be the kid again, be the child who, and what I'm in essence doing in this present moment is giving myself now what I didn't get then, or I didn't experience then, or I didn't feel then. That's when I can access the kid in me. And it's at that point I feel this reconnection, this fractal piece of myself come back, and another one comes back, and another, and I won't let anything hijack that. And if it
mm,
does, that's my invitation for the wrath to divine wrath to come
yeah,
up. And it's actually that's it's at that point when I have stood in my truth, when I have completely honored myself, the freedom that I experience, there's no words for. There's no
yeah,
words for it. The liberation and the freedom. And I think listening to what you've been talking to tonight, I mean, I'm no way there, but that's what we're going for. That's what we're looking for, is that the freedom from anything that's not love.
yeah,
Anything that's not love.
yeah. If you look at the dweller on the threshold now, it's gone. And what you see is a beautiful warrior princess.
Mm, I resist.
Who's that? Beg your pardon?
I said I'm a princess now.
No, yeah, that's the dweller. It's ourselves.
It's beautiful.
Ourselves in human form,
Yeah.
connected totally with soul being.
Mm,
And so you could be on that side, this side of the door, or on the other side.
yeah.
And you're holding the gate, and nothing passes through that gate which is not innocent.
Yeah.
Remember the saying, "Set the child be, sent, except ye be as little children, ye cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven." Oh, that hits me.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true.
I
It's
remember
out.
you saying that in many conversations that we've had.
Yeah.
And I've never fully understood it until very recently. And
Mm,
how precious that energy actually is.
how precious we are,
Yeah.
and how
Beautiful
precious
humans.
all being beautiful humans. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah.
And listen, we might wrap it up there. We're on after being chatting for an hour and 15 minutes, but I would love to do this anytime. you have some free time. I think what are we on? 12 hours apart now. That you had a time zone change.
Yeah, yes, our time went forward again.
Okay. Well, listen.
Summertime.
Anytime that you're interested, I'd love to jump back on. I love these conversations, and um,
Okay,
yeah,
we'll continue.
yeah. Until next time, thanks for everybody for joining us. See you soon.